Now it is time for me to turn the program over to our speaker chair, Sasha Vanoski. Sasha?
Thank you, Dick. Our guest today has an impeccable service record in this community of well over 3 decades. He has been an integral part of the Orange County Supervisor of Elections office since 1989. Even before he was elected as the Orange County Supervisor of Elections himself in 1996. He was then re-elected in 2000, 2004, 2008, 2012, and 2016. He's a UCF graduate with a degree in public administration, and he's also very active in his church and the community. He's an elder at Quest Church, board member of the Central Florida Council of Boy Scouts, member of the UCF Public Administration Advisory Board, and past president of the Kiwanis Club of North Orlando. He has been married to his wife, Cheryl, since 1978, and they have 2 married sons and 4 grandsons. Please welcome the Orange County Supervisor of Elections, Mr. Bill Cowles.
All right, good afternoon. Let's see. All right, technology is not working for me today. There we go. All right, can you hear me all right?
Very great.
Okay, because it went mute. So first off, I really enjoyed your opening celebrating the anniversary of 9/11. And from my world, I would point out that the morning of 9/11 was also the start of Election Day in New York City. And so one of the first things that happened was voting was postponed in that city election. And that was back in the days when they were using the old lever machines that you went in and pulled down the levers to cast your vote. And it's a pleasure always to be with the Orlando Rotary Club because I've had a great relationship over the years with the club. And since I got to see my good friend Jim Stowers there, he can tell you about my life before I went to the dark side of politics, because he was one of the scoutmasters at Troop 24 when I was working for the Boy Scouts of America on that. So it's good to see him and others that I heard your names that we have seen. And this pandemic sure does hurt all of us where we can't get to see each other in person and fellowship. And thank you for the opening comments, Sergeant. I will add to it that I have been reelected here in 2020 with no opposition. So my name will not be on the ballot. And so at the end of this new term, it will have been 35 years here at the elections office serving you and the others in Orange County. And it's ironic as we begin the discussion about the upcoming, I'm sure everybody's heard something about there's an election on November 3rd. You might have been hearing some things out there about it on that. Probably it's just about the top ticket. So we'll talk about some of the other stuff that is on the ballot for this election. But it's ironic that I have been elected 7 times and only twice did the good Lord bless me with not having to have an opponent and be on the ballot. And the first time that happened was, you might remember the presidential election of 2000. And now we're looking at the presidential election of 2020. So I'll ask you, which one is going to be more historic? The election of 2000 or the election of 2020? Or like I really wish and I pray a lot about, we didn't know the presidential election of 2000 was going to be what it turned out to be until after the votes were in on election night. And this time we're feeling the pressure this early on the election. So could the results be so good that it'll be a non-event after November 3rd? That's a question to ponder on it. So with that, let me get, what I like to do in these presentations is quickly give you an overview of where we're at from my standpoint as the administrator of the election, and then open it up, if I can, take questions, because I think answering your things that you've been hearing or things you want to know about it is more important. But again, the couple key dates that are coming up, obviously, you must be registered to vote in Florida by October the 5th in order to participate in the election. But I also like to point out that that keeping your information up to date is probably more important. So if you've moved and you've forgotten to let the elections office know about your change, do that. And you can do that with a phone call. It doesn't have to be in writing. And in that way, I want to make sure that everybody gets their sample ballot so that you can pre-study your ballot before you go to vote. And you need to get ready, because here's the ballots. Every voter is getting 2 pieces of paper, and it's on both sides of the ballot. There are 6 questions on there. 4 of them are the ones that came from the initiative petition process, where enough petitions were done to secure a place on the ballot. And then 2 of them came from the Florida legislature, for the total of 6 questions from the state. And then locally, the Orange County Charter Review Commission met for the last 18 months, and they came up with 3 questions to put on the ballot. You may have heard about one of them here in the news recently, where kind of historic in that Osceola County sued Orange County to tell us what we can and can't do with our county charter. So that kind of made some headlines recently, and it's over the Split Oaks Reserve area and about the extension of the Osceola County Parkway. So you got a long ballot, and so no matter which way you're voting, I definitely ask that you pre-study your sample ballot or your vote by mail ballot, and then mark it, vote early, so that you can guarantee that your vote is being cast in before the deadline of November the 3rd at 5 o'clock. So talking about the 3 ways to vote, let me point out that before that with this pandemic, Florida has been extremely fortunate in that we had our presidential preference primary back in March. Actually, it was on St. Patrick's Day, and we were able to get it in under normal conditions before the pandemic started. And then we came back to August 18th for our primary election, and the primary election seemed to be in the reopening of our state. I think we were actually in phase 2 of reopening. And fortunately, almost every county was able to take and move forward and open all of our polling places, open our early voting sites, and conduct a normal election. And now we're moving on to the November 3rd, and hopefully conditions are continuing to go. And I say that because when you think about the elections, you might be thinking more about the elections you heard that happened at the height of the pandemic, where states were canceling elections, moving the dates of their elections. They couldn't find poll workers. They couldn't get enough help to work the polls or polling places. And that's where we've been blessed, that we have been at the front end and the back end of the process. And it appears that all things are go for November 3rd, where we'll be able to open up everything like we normally would in any other election. So with that, we have 3 ways to vote. And the most popular way now, and this has been part of the movement that we have seen during this pandemic, and that is the shift to vote by mail, or as it's called in other states, absentee voting. We used to call it absentee here, but that was back when you had to have an excuse to get it. And now Florida says, if you want to vote by mail, you can do it. And one of the things you've been hearing in the news, you've been hearing the president keep saying that he's opposed to the universal voting. And what he's talking about with the universal voting is the fact that states are moving to where they're just automatically sending voters a ballot to vote. And he believes, and Florida is this way, and that you must request a vote by mail ballot in order to receive one. And so from that standpoint, it's not too late at this point to request a vote by mail ballot. The first vote by mail ballots will be going out on September the 30th. So you have plenty of time from September 30th to November 3rd to mark it and get it back. The other story about vote by mail that you're hearing a lot about is about the United States Postal Service. And so from that standpoint, our message to voters is that if you choose to return your ballot through the mail system, please mail it at least a week before the elections. Postal Service says that first class mail takes 2 to 5 days to return. So we strongly urge, if you're going to opt to send it in by mail, do it a week in advance. We also have a tracking system for your vote by mail ballot. And so if you want to go on our website, you can go to the website and track it. It'll tell you the date your request was made. It'll tell you the date we mailed it, but then it will show the date that your ballot was returned. And then it will tell you if you're in the accepted category and your ballot's gone on to be processed, or it will show that you have an issue with your ballot and you need to do a cure affidavit. It's hard to believe that we mail out these ballots and still people mark their ballots, put the envelope back in the mail, and they never sign the envelope. So one of those things we have to chase down is those voters and get them to complete an affidavit in order to update it. The other one is the fact that your signature, as is on record with us, is your ID when you're voting by mail. And so from that standpoint, we're comparing your signature to the signature you put on that certificate envelope. So if you know your signature has changed, it's a good idea to update your signature with us before you turn in your vote by mail ballot. So those are some hints. And also, Orange County is one of the counties in the state that when you return your vote by mail ballot, we've already put the postage on the certificate envelope. And so you don't have to worry about finding postage in order to send your ballot back. So we've seen that shift. Right now, we are rapidly approaching 300,000 requests out of the almost 850,000 registered voters in Orange County who are requesting a vote by mail. And by far, it is our highest amount of ballots to be mailed out. So it will become the most popular way to vote. The second most popular way to vote is early voting. And early voting, we're going to open up sites starting October the 19th, and it will run through Sunday night, November the 1st. And so you can go to any early voting site, and we're going to have 20 locations around Orange County, and you can go to the one most convenient to you and your daily activities. And so they will open. They'll be 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Each of the 14 straight days of early voting. One of the things we've done, we had 16 sites back in 2016. We went to 18 sites for the presidential preference primary and primary, and we've now upped it to 20 sites for the presidential election on November 3rd. You may have heard the big announcement last week. The 20th site will be the Amway Center and the Orlando Magic and City of Orlando in Orange County and the elections office all partner to set it up. And so there will be early voting there. And one of my new favorite sayings in this election, and many of you might have seen it, if you remember the image of the Orlando Magic basketball players stepping off the bus to go into the bubble for the restart or relaunch of the NBA, they were all wearing the same shirt. And it says, get off the bench, get in the game, vote. And I think that's a very appropriate message that is out there for this election season. And so we'll have the 20 early voting sites open. Also, every early voting site will have drop-off boxes where you can drop off your vote by mail ballot. So as the days get closer to the election and you don't trust putting it in the mail and making sure it gets to us by 7 p.m. election night, you can go to those drop-off boxes at each of the early voting sites. And the majority of them are going to actually have drive-through drop-off, so you don't even have to get out of your car. You just pull up. There's an attendant there for the box. They'll put out a plastic tray. You put your ballot on the tray. They will verify that you signed it, and then they'll take a pair of tongs and lift it up and put it into the sealed box. All part of our COVID procedures and protocols that we have in play. So if you're interested in not putting your ballot in the mail, you can take it to one of those drop sites. Don't even have to get out of your car. Amway Center will have one right there on Church Street. You just pull up to the entrance to the arena. Or here at the elections office, we've gotten permission to use across the street at the Work Release Center. And we're actually going to have a 2-lane drop-off site over there because we know a lot of people like to come down here to the main office. And finally, of course, the traditional way to vote is you can go to your assigned polling place on November 3rd and go and vote in person. And all of our early voting sites have protocols in play. We have plexiglass shields. We encourage we're not encouraged, but the executive order from Mayor Demings is everybody must wear a mask. All my workers will, and we encourage voters to wear a mask. But we're never going to turn somebody away for not wearing a mask because voting is a right given to us under the Constitution. And we're not going to deny a person the right to vote. We encourage you to bring your own black or blue pen if you're going to mark a ballot at early voting or election day so that you're not touching a pen used by somebody else. So we've got protections in play for it. And the other thing that we've been truly blessed is the fact that we have had an overwhelming response to the call for poll workers between our Adopt a Precinct program, where we have 120 organizations that adopt one of our precincts. They're our base for the poll workers. And then the people who sign up to be poll workers, a lot of people call them volunteers, but I can assure you, we pay them to make sure they show up and work on election day. And so we've had a tremendous response. We have filled up all of our election boards, and we've also taken and got all of our backups, and we've actually still have more who are interested in working, and we've told them that we'll keep them in mind if we need them, and if not, we'll see them in 2022 and when we start elections again. So quick overview of what's kind of going on and trying to touch on some of the national issues that you may have heard, but I'm sure that there are a bunch of questions that you may have about the election process. And so I'm willing to take questions, or somebody can read the questions that have come in to me, and I'll go through it.
Bill, what we'll do is people have gotten their name on the list under the chat, and I'll call them in order. So our first question comes from Cowles.
Thank you, Bill, for a great presentation. You're hearing so much about mail ballot fraud and the Russians interfering and all that kind of stuff. what are the extra precautions you're taking this year compared to, say, 4 years ago when we had the general?
Yeah, our message really hasn't changed. The first one is, please take responsibility for your own ballot. And so the first thing is, if somebody comes knocking on your door and saying they're here to collect your ballot, don't give it to somebody you don't know or don't trust that will take care of turning it in for you. So that's the first item. The other one is, I think, the increase in the drive-through drop-off by handing it off to a person from my staff is a way to be assured that you actually got it in and it's not going through the postal system on that. And the other thing I encourage all voters to do who are voting by mail is use that tracking system. Because remember, if the tracker shows that your ballot has not been turned in, it means you haven't voted. So you can still go to early voting and you can still go to your polling place on election day. So we have these things in play in terms of protecting and also working with the voter. So again, take responsibility and manage your ballot.
Okay, thank you, Bill. Our next question comes from Ali. Ali? Well, while he struggles to get on, let's move on to Emerson. Emerson, you had a question?
Oh, he already said his question was answered in the chat box, so he doesn't need to come on.
Okay.
Ali's ready. I think Ali is ready.
Ali, are you
Yeah, I'm
unmuted?
here. I don't think I'm on speaker. I just wanted to commend Bill for all of his service to the community, both through the Boy Scouts and as elections commissioner.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ali. Marina, you had a question.
Marina's comment in the chat box is that she had to run to another meeting.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Ross. Then over to you for your question.
Thank you. My question was, if a person requested and received a mailed ballot for the previous primary in August, do we have to apply again for another mail ballot, or will it be automatically sent?
The request for vote by mail is good for 2 federal elections. So if you got your ballots in 2020 for one of the elections already, then it should be good for this one, and it should be good for the year 2022. Again, I would suggest you go to the ocfelections.com website and look up your record and make sure that it shows that you have a request. Unfortunately, the state has this thing where the request is only good for 2 years and then it expires, and we try to remind everybody to renew. But if you have any ears of a legislator, tell them Bill Cowles says we should have permanent status for the vote by mail request, so you don't have to go through am I or am I not on it.
Okay, thank you, Bill. Our next question comes from Sydney. Sydney, can you unmute and ask your question? Well, let me read Sydney's question. She asks, what website do we use to check if our ballot was accepted and what our original signature was?
Well, the one for checking, you go to ocfelections.com, and that's where you can find your status on it. Unfortunately, the only way to see your signature would be to come down here and view it, because signatures is one of those protective items that is not available through public record or on public records or on public display. Basically, people have told me the best way they can remember their signature is take a look at your driver's license And if the signature on your driver's license matches how you signed today, go ahead and know that that's probably the one we have. But again, I know that between identity theft issues and all, aging issues, health issues, signatures do change. So sometimes it might be better to update your signature just to be safe. And then somebody else told me, you take a picture of it on your iPhone and then you save that picture so that you have it. Because I know how my wife signs those signature pads at Walmart, or how she signs the ticket at a restaurant where she doesn't want the server to see our signature.
Okay, thank you, Bill. Our next question comes from Lee Chodas. Lee, welcome back to the club.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Bill. Bill, what stops someone from requesting ballots in other people's names and forging their signature? All they would need would be the name, address, and birth date. Does that cause a problem if the real person goes to the poll on November 3 and tries to vote and someone has already fraudulently voted in their name? Will the vote on November 3 be permitted?
There are very complicated questions there, process-wise. First off, in the request making, they should, they have to have all that information to match up to get one. And then if the signature is another comparison issue, but if somebody showed up at the polls on election day, we would then have them do a provisional ballot. Then we would do the research here and determine whether that ballot would be counted. And I wish I had investigative powers, but I don't. But we have a good working relationship with the state attorney's office, and we'll turn over all the information that we can to them to help them investigate.
Okay, thank you, Bill. Our next question comes from Joe Boy.
Yes, my name is Joe Boy, and I'm wondering, what resources you have for children? My son is 9 years old. He does a radio broadcast. He talks to about 85,000 kids in the U.S.
Well, I'm always available to help do interviews or to be interviewed. We can share with them some programs that we know here, particularly in normal school settings. We do Kids Voting USA, where we have a countywide, then it's a statewide mock election process. So feel free to have him reach out to me here at the elections office, and be glad to talk to him about some opportunities.
Thanks,
Okay,
sir.
Thank you, Bill. Our next question comes from Chris Boland.
Yes, just a quick question on with my son, with his background of Citizen of the Year in Orange County and Eagle Scout, as well as all his accolades. What would he need when he would reach 25 if he would decide to run for a congressional position? What would be the steps in Orange County that he would need to take?
Well, I guess the first thing is pay attention, because right now the census is about to wrap up, and in the legislative session of 2022, the Florida legislature has to draw the new congressional districts, House districts, and Senate districts that will have a lot to determine about what area you would run in. The other part too is the congressional races fall more under the Federal Elections Commission than it does here at the state. So I would say do the research with the Federal Elections Commission to get the background information on that, because your reports, your funding is all different than what state law is for local candidates and state candidates. So that would be the first stop. And the second spot is just sit down and talk to somebody who is either sitting congressional member or has been one, and let them talk you through the process that they had to experience.
Okay, thank you, Bill. Our next question comes from Rich Ungaro.
Bill, my question is, you said there were some drop boxes for people to drop off their ballot. Who picks up that drop box? Is it the post office or someone else?
No. It's all under the control of this office, and that's why we have an attendant who mans the box We're also going to have a courier service that's going to go around and pick them up during the day, because we expect that they will get very full. And those ballots are brought back to this office and accounted for every night during the early voting period.
Just so I'm clear though, these boxes always have someone next to the box?
Yes, there is
24 hours?
No. The boxes are only out during the hours that early voting is open. The only place that there's a box that's 24/7, and that's the permanent bolted to the ground box here at the main elections office.
And what stops people from doing what they call harvesting, where they just drop off a bunch of them and put them in the box?
Well, the statute says that anybody can pick up as many ballots as they want. The law says that if you're being paid to be a collector, then you can only collect 2 besides your immediate family members.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Our next question comes from Bill Pieper.
Unmute. Can't hear you, Bill. Still not there.
Bill, are you unmuted?
I thought I did. There we go. Thank you. Do you ever see a time when we will have national standards and procedures for voting across the country?
No, only because the Constitution says on January the 20th, the year after the presidential election, is the swearing in of the president. The Senate years ago set the first Tuesday after the first Monday as the national election day. And then it leaves it up to all 50 states and territories to write their own election laws. And I just don't see any way that they're going to be able to pull it together. I mean, right now we do have the Elections Assistance Commission, but they're more of a resource and communicators than they are policymakers. And that's probably as far as we're going to go. So I don't see that in any time soon.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks for being with us.
All right, was it bagel time?
Bill, our next question is from Britt Lovett. Britt, can you unmute and ask your question?
Yeah. Hi, Bill. My question was, in the last election, the 2018 election, I guess, cycle, how many percentage of ballots had to be returned because of, or not counted because of errors?
I don't know the statistic off the top, but there's always somewhere around 400 in a countywide election that get rejected because the voter never signed the envelope. And that's after they were notified and given the opportunity to correct that. And then a lower number of them in that in the category of signature no match. And we go to every length to reach out to these individuals by phone, emails, snail mail, any way we can to get them to respond to it. So it's a shame, but that is just a natural part of the process that happens.
Okay, thank you, Bill. I don't see.
That's a pretty low number, though.
It is when you look in perspective. And again, I expected it will go up this November 3rd because the volume of ballots will go up. But again, we are being as proactive as we can to let the voter know about fixing it. And that's why I even use the example that the attendant at the drop boxes are verifying that the ballot is signed before they put it into the box, so the voter has a chance to fix it right there.
Okay, one more question, Bill, from Nelson Cole. Nelson, can you unmute and ask your question? Nelson?
Okay, here I am. Here's the question. If we have so many safety measures to avoid eliminate or actually stop ballot harvesting. Why is it still occurring, ballot harvesting in the state of Florida?
Well, again, the statutes allow for people to pick up the ballots, and again, just human nature of things that happen. You get an employee who says, "I'm on the way down to the elections office to turn in my vote by mail ballot," and then suddenly 5 or 6 other employees said, "Oh, can you take mine? Can you take mine?" And there's really nothing wrong with that. Do you call that ballot harvesting, or do you go back to the comment that I made earlier about the person who goes around knocking on your door and saying, "Hey, I'm here to pick up your ballot"? And that's where I put out the caution: don't give your ballot to anybody you don't know.
Is there any law at the state level or at the county level that can actually stop that?
Stop them from going door to door?
Make it illegal, right?
Well, I mean, the legislature is the one who writes the law that's used in the state and by all 67 counties. And they have, over the years, dealt with it, and that's where we're at today.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Bill. We've run out of questions. And on behalf of the club, thank you for a very knowledgeable and informative presentation. It's always a pleasure to hear from you. And if the election is really tight and a lot of things go on, we might ask you to come back and tell us what was going on behind the scenes during the contested part of the election. So in any case, thank you so much. And
My
we
pleasure.
do appreciate your being with us. Next week, our speaker is Aubrey Jewett, UCF Press Professor of Political Science and a well-known political commentator. And he will be speaking on Florida's importance in presidential elections. So you won't want to miss that. It should be another great presentation. And now, as we come to the end of the meeting, remember, do business with Rotarians. And finally, for the four-way test. Of the things we think, say, and do, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Thank you all for being with us.